Hello and welcome back. Technically, it's been a while. I'm Mary Van Alstyne, and I am here with my amazing friend and partner, Robert Morales.
Hello, that's me. I'm back here.
We're back.
Inner Journey. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are here on the Inner Journey podcast, where we dive deep into all things it means to be human. Emotional intelligence, emotions, the crap we go through day to day, and
Absolutely.
how we can cope and how we can deal with that kind of thing in a constructive way, right?
Absolutely. I've missed you. You've been gone
too.
quite a while.
It's been a while.
On sabbatical. Finding yourself yet again to bring what you've learned here to all of us at the Inner Journey. So welcome. So thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Today is like no other. We're talking about image, right?
Yes,
And
we
what that
are.
means.
Yes.
How do you feel about your image, Miss?
I feel pretty good about my image. I've been working on self-image and self-love for quite a while, and yet I still have a ways to go, as we all do. These kinds of things are just things we get to work on for the rest of our lives, right? And learn more about.
I found, I think at my heaviest, my sense of image really hit me when I was like 310 pounds. And it really wasn't the image itself. It was more of like the feeling than anything else. And I just didn't like myself, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much about the physical images as much as the feeling. And I don't know if that really resonates with other people or resonates with you.
Definitely resonates with me. I have that, excuse me, I have that instance of image of being overweight and just having this, like, I don't really like the way that I look, but I also, deeper than that, didn't like the way that I was showing up in life because I wasn't able to show up because I had no level of self-respect and commitment to myself or self-love, and that caused me to show up in a way that I wasn't the best I could be,
Yeah, and I think that really impacts everybody. I mean, I think as you go through a day or whatever, you're passing through whatever office, you go and you genially say, "Hey, how you doing, Mary?" "Oh, good, thanks."
Yeah.
And you could be dying inside, but then you just kind of blow it off because you know that if you say anything else, somebody will be like, "Oh, okay, so what's wrong with you? Are you okay? I mean, is everything all right?" And you're like, "No, I'm depressed. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. I yelled at my husband today, and because he's a douchebag, and I keep telling him he's a douchebag. And hey, shit's happening in my life. I'm not just good."
Yeah.
But we carry that image because I think in a way we want to be isolated, and separated from other people.
Well, vulnerability can be seen as weak, and it's scary, right? For someone to really know what's going on with us and someone to really know what we're feeling and what we're dealing with inside is very vulnerable. And I think that the way that society has portrayed vulnerability, I always have trouble, I always trip over vulnerability, is that it is a weakness somehow, And that's why I made it a goal probably about 5 years ago to, I literally had a affirmation about being vulnerable. Like, I'm a vulnerable, powerful person, and it was my journey to step into becoming more authentic and showing up in the world as who I am and telling people I feel like shit when I feel like shit and showing up as who I am, like, authentically, me. And for me, when you asked about, like, this moment of self-image and self-love, what comes to me is about a year and a half ago now, when I decided to strip away. I've been diving deep into this. Okay, I'm committed to stripping away everything that's not me and everything that's not authentic. And what I did was decided to remove my breast implants, and that was a huge moment for me of my image, right? Because I realized how much I had built this image of myself based on something that wasn't a part of my body.
Well, because it really identifies you as a female, right? There's a few parts that are more external. I mean, you can't really see kind of like your vagina in any way. But your breasts are prominent that way, and for a man, I don't know what the identifying mark of a man is, but for definitely,
no, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, I guess what the focus is on, it's not a penis,
Who knows?
But that's what identifies a woman as a woman, right? And long hair, typically too. I mean, that's probably second.
That's the image that I think
but it's mostly the breast.
Yeah, I think that when we were younger and in times. I think it's changing now, but that was the image of this is what makes you a woman, right? And goodness, all of that image stuff is changing, and people are starting to accept themselves for who they are, and they're not feeling like they need to be a magazine cover in order to be a woman, right? And that was what I struggled with. Like, I looked up to all these magazines, and that was like who I needed to be in order to be a woman, so much so that I decided I needed to have boobies to be a woman, because I don't, I'm not a woman without them. And so that was a huge decision for me to take those out and then go on this deeper dive into self-love, self-acceptance, and showing up as who I really am.
Yeah, and I think that the age time, or the age that really that manifests, is around middle school, so around like 12, when you starting into puberty. I do remember, like, the first time I saw a girl get boobs was really in middle school. And I guess I shouldn't say her name, but she was very heavy chested, and being in 7th grade, it's like, oh.
Yeah,
but I think that's really where it starts. You really start understanding that there's a separation between boys and girls at that point,
and between you and your parents. Like, that's when you really start turning into your own person, right? And then also, what's around you and what's being portrayed to you is what you should show up as, whether that's communicated to you through your parents or through the media, really starts to become important to you. And that's when I feel like that's when you really start molding yourself into what you think you need to be.
Yeah, and I think the idea behind image, and the reason why we kind of blow people off, that they say, "Oh, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Oh, great. I'm doing good." You can kind of just passively walk by and not really be vulnerable and say, "I'm having a really shitty day, but I'm getting through it." Instead of being realistic and being real like that. I think part of it is communal, and part of it is survival mechanism. It's kind of like, I can't identify as being weak, because if I'm weak, then I'm not part of this group. And if they see me as a weak part of this group, they may just push me aside and ignore me, and then separate completely. And I'm left alone in the dark.
Yeah,
I'm left alone to the wolves because I'm the weakest link out of this whole chain.
Yeah, and that really ties into the real problem is that we perceive vulnerability as weakness. And I think that's where the work needs to be done. Is like, how do we change this view on vulnerability to make it a positive thing, to make it a strength versus a weakness? Because when we're able to embrace that as a strength, then we're willing to show up as that, because we no longer have the fear of being abandoned by other people, Yeah,
and it's so visceral, and we try to be above that. We try to be more cerebral and have this greater understanding of, like, hey, women empowerment, men need to be, whatever hashtag you follow. We want this separation, we want this recognition. We're all like equal, but then we're all different, and it's just. It comes down to we are still animals at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's trying to figure out how to connect what we understand with how we feel, and that's really two different beings, two different people. Mm-hmm. Because there's the very real part of me that's like, hey, I'm having a shitty day. And I'm glad you asked how I'm doing, but I can't really spend the time to explain why I'm having a shitty day. So I'm just going to reserve the right to say I'm doing good, and in order to kind of just passively move on and have you accept me still in this community.
Yeah, that's true.
And then of course the person hearing that's like, oh, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. And also the part about you were talking about learning something, and then in being able to embody that into our physiology, right? Not just in our head, but into our emotions and into our body, to where we really can trust that it's safe. That's the process that takes some work. Yeah. That's the process where you have to go, okay, I learned something. Oh, it's cool. I'm going to see vulnerability as strength now. And great, you have this knowledge, but how are you implementing that to embody it, right? Because that's when it really starts to become truth, is when we don't just know it, we feel it, we know it, we own it, And that's the process that I feel like both of us have been working on so greatly. Yeah,
and I think the first marker in all that process is being honest.
Yeah.
Being honest with yourself and being honest with somebody else, but not being vulnerable to the extent where it's out of control.
Right.
That's where emotional intelligence comes in. That's
exactly.
Where it's like, just in that very same regard, and said, hey, I'm having a shitty day. I haven't really figured it out yet. I don't really know why, but I'm glad you asked, and I'm gonna continue on with my pursuit of my day to finish off the work. I'm gonna stay busy, but I'm gonna continue to have a shitty day until I figure out how I'm feeling and then how I can make this better. Yeah. That's really being vulnerable, because I'm sharing my true feelings. but two, accepting the fact of my position.
Yeah.
You know, and not, you know, putting it upon you like, hey man, Mary, I'm having a shitty day.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's really putting it on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Right? Because the first thing is like, oh shit, I got that report I gotta write.
Yeah. Well, unless you have a person that is a trusted person for you that you know, kind of have that agreement with, because I definitely have those friends where I can be like, hey, like I just need to completely dump something, and am I safe to do that with you? You know, and that's that responsible part, right? It's like, don't just walk around just, you know, dumping all your stuff on everyone. That's not really what vulnerability means.
Correct.
But it's even the courage to say what you really think about something. You know, in a meeting, whether it's with work, coworkers, friends, family, lover, you know, being willing to like take that uncomfortable step to go, I don't agree. This is my thought, you know, but we get so afraid of that rejection that you talk about that we're willing to like cover up what we really think and feel. And so the courage part is like, and this is probably the practice part too, is to start speaking a little bit more truth in a skillful way, I would say, not just like, I disagree with you and you're wrong, right? Then that's where the emotional intelligence part comes in. It's like you have to simultaneously work on those things.
Yeah, and I think the skillful part of that is not necessarily like trying to figure out the right words, but again, being honest with the feeling, but not imposing upon somebody else. Yeah. So in an example, it's like, hey, I'm having a bad day. But I'm not gonna like be so withdrawn and having a bad day that I'm gonna like put it on you to fix. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, hey, I'm having a bad day. I'm like, oh, how can I help you? Oh, well, I don't really want the help. I just want to be honest with you and you know, share how I feel. I'm in this state. It's not your responsibility to take care of my feelings.
Right.
But I did want to share that because I wanted to be honest with you about how I felt. You know, we pass each other in the hallway every other day. You know, as we work, and you ask me how I'm doing all the time, and I say usually good, but today I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
And
then you move on.
You know how much a weight that lifts off of you, because you're no longer having to put all this energy into showing up a certain way, right? If you're like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, you know, I'm having a really rough day, which we've had that conversation. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, I'm just letting you know. And then I feel this sense of relief, right? Because I don't have to try to be, oh, happy, everything's great, bubbly Mary, when I'm really feeling bad inside. Like, that gives me permission to be maybe a little bit more low energy, and it gives you an understanding of like, oh, she's kind of having a rough day. I shouldn't expect everything from her that maybe I expect. You know what I mean? So it just like allows us to go deeper in our relationship as well, you know?
Yeah, and it all comes back down to image, you know, how we see ourselves and how we want to portray ourselves. And I think, again, it goes back to those visceral sense of being human. Of surviving in this crazy world. You know, it's like we're still, like I said before, we're still animals. You know, we're still there's some there's some very real parts of us that we're still trying to understand, and it's really hard to connect one end to the other. And one end is understanding his emotions and seeing how I feel, but also knowing that there's other things, you know, there are past trauma, you know, certain circumstances, situations, you know, even the drive to work, all played a part into how you feel versus how you feel. Yeah. You know, there's the acknowledgement and then the actual feeling itself. Yeah. So that's got a connection there. So the first part in my 2-part series is being honest, but not the second part of that is not to impose it on somebody else. And we do that, right? We carry that to our house or home.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Definitely. We because that's just not being able to accept responsibility for ourselves and wanting other people to fix us, looking outside, you know, to fix us, and not seeing that we're the only one that can.
Well, image goes into our relationships too, because image is like, well, if I don't feel good about myself, well, guess what? I'm going to take it out typically on somebody else, because all I know to do is project outward. All I've been taught my whole life is to blame something or somebody else and not accept it, because it was in my parents and my family, you know, they did it by action. They didn't sit down and say, hey, well, Robert, when you feel upset, you're going to, you know, blame your wife in the future. Okay. I want you to sit down and be angry and point the finger at your wife and say, you know what? It's your fault. I'm not feeling good today. Yeah. You know, they didn't do that. They did it by action, by taking it out on their spouse, or my dad, my mom, my dad, all that stuff. You know, family members, you learn it from their actions, and you accept it as like, oh, well, this is how I'm supposed to love somebody else. Yeah. You know, I'm when I feel bad, when I have that poor self-image, I'm going to take it out on somebody else or externalize it.
Project it. Yeah.
And image plays so much into everything that we do. Oh,
so much. Like, what came to mind for me is that, you know, when you have a poor self-image, you're not able to accept as much love as you could potentially receive from other people, right? If I walk around and I'm feeling shitty about myself and the way I look, how am I supposed to accept compliments? I'm not going to. I'm going to reject them. And that I know from experience in the past. I would push any compliment that came back, or came to me, it was like, no, and you block that. Well, what that does is it also shuts the other person down. They're trying to give you something and you're not receiving it, therefore they're rejected, and then starts that cycle, right, where we feel like we're not being accepted by someone, and that causes a massive wedge in a relationship. So like for me, my point number whatever we're on now would be like, you can never accept more love than the love you have for yourself, or you can never accept more than you have as far as your own self-image.
Has since you brought that up, with a partner, has like your image ever played into, and you don't have to maybe, well, if you want to.
We get personal.
Oh, we're getting a little personal.
We always do.
Yes. Hello. Has that played into your sexuality too?
Absolutely.
Like
100%. Yeah.
Like remember the first time you ever had sex? You're very self-conscious. You're like, okay, do I, does this look okay? Is it? Oh.
Fun little fact.
Well, for a guy, it's like, is my penis big enough?
Oh yeah.
Is it strong enough?
And then how do you show up in the bedroom, right? Awkward and just like weird and fidgety, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. I was a disaster in that area until, probably just a few years ago, because my self-image didn't start improving, and this whole topic we can go way down on, but down the road, down the hole, whatever. But yeah,
down the hole.
Absolutely 100% plays into that. And how does that affect your relationship, right? How things are in the bedroom affects your relationship.
Yeah, because I could definitely see that, and it has impacted relationships in the past. Where the other partner, I recognize that they didn't feel good about their situation.
It makes it awkward.
I had a particular partner that, she had a child and she had the scar, and then that was her only focus. Oh, I'm sorry about my scar. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we dim the lights down? And, it became like, oh shit, I'm not doing good.
Oh, it makes you start questioning yourself, and then you got to be careful where are you looking, how are you making them feel, right?
And then all those feelings play into the relationship.
Yeah, and how is it versus someone who you go in, they're super confident about themselves, they know what they want, they feel good about themselves, you just feel carefree and you can have fun, and it's just a completely different experience in the bedroom and everywhere. Really. If I show up at a work conference and I need to do a little speech and I'm completely think that I'm horrible at this and I'm nervous and jittery, like what's that going to do to the crowd, right? They're going to have that. But if I go up there and I'm confident and I feel good and I know, or either that or I don't care, right? They're free to just relax and have fun and hear what I'm saying versus feeling, because we're very empathic. All of us are empathic to a degree. We can pick up what another person's energy is putting out, right? And so think about that when you're walking into the bedroom or you're walking into a work meeting, or like it's very important how you're showing up and what energy you're putting out, and that depends a lot on how you're feeling about yourself.
Yeah, it all comes back and starts with image.
Yeah.
And so the last part, as we wrap up, we're almost towards the end.
Wow.
Is I think acceptance. We did talk about that a little bit more. I'm still challenged with acceptance. There's still moments where like you brought a gift to me the other day. It was like a beach towel. Maybe it was like a year ago now. It's like,
it was like a year ago. Yeah, actually, because it was our Christmas in July.
Oh yeah, so it was almost a year ago.
Almost a year.
It was like it was a bag with a beach towel and some other little like trinkets and stuff. Yeah. And it's still like, even that moment, it's like, oh hey,
yeah, it was awkward.
Thank you.
It was awkward. I was like,
I'm not that type of person.
Should I feel bad for bringing you something? Or I think when I brought you a book once, it was the same reaction, right? And that's just, the fact that you recognize that gives you the ability to decide how you want to
because you feel like a dick, like hey, oh thank you, and I don't know how to react. I'm like I'm not used to getting. I'm used to giving. I love giving. Yeah. I will give all day long for free. I'll give of myself way too much, and then when I get something, it's like, oh hey,
it's kind of like that compliment.
Do I give you a hug? Do I say thank you?
Thank you. Thank you.
do I say thank you vigorously? Oh, thank you, or do I say is thank you good enough?
You may be overthinking it.
But that's how I get.
Yeah, because you're receiving. Yeah. You're receiving, and what does that say about what you deserve? Right, your image about what you deserve. right? You deserve to be the one giving, but do you really deserve to receive from people? And I think that's a great opportunity to practice being comfortable in the uncomfortable, which I would say is my number one tip on how. So how do you start working on this? Get comfortable with doing some uncomfortable things here and there, saying thank you, and then maybe going, was that an awkward thank you? But then the more you do it, you're like, thank you. Like the first time when I decided to start practicing this and I got a compliment about an outfit, or you look great today, or your hair, whatever, I felt so weird just saying thank you. You know, I was like, Mary, you're just going to say thank you from now on, because we're working on self-image. We're working on accepting compliments, right? We want compliments. And so thank you. And then I'm like going crazy inside wanting to say, no, you know, I didn't wash my hair today. And, you know, and I wanted to reject it just like you. So it's that awkward stir, but just forcing yourself to sit in that discomfort and go, okay, this is going to get better. It's going to get better.
Well, and I mean, there's so many things in my head that go into accepting it. Like, did I say it good enough? Did I express enough exuberance? Because most of the time it's like, oh, hey, thanks.
We're judging.
I mean, generally that's my initial reaction. Oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Because like I don't connect a lot of things to tangible items. Like,
right.
I feel like I have everything.
I'm very similar in that way in receiving gifts. Yeah. But, you know, now I'm just like, oh, thank you so much. It's like, how do I really feel? I feel thankful, you know, but still kind of cringe a little bit, because our worthiness and deserving are very similar in that way. Yeah. But I still practice, you know, and every day is an opportunity. Every moment that happens is an opportunity to grow through it. Because the more that we're willing to do that and challenge it and overcome it, the more we grow, you know, and that's what it's all about.
So with anything else that we need to talk about as far as image goes today, Miss?
No, get uncomfortable receiving compliments and gifts. And just get really serious about the journey of self-love, because it's a great one. Yeah,
and so if I may, I would like to say thank you to our audience.
Yes,
or even in an exuberant way. Oh, thank you.
Was that good enough? Was that?
I don't know.
Maybe it should have been thank you.
Could be various ways. But if you liked what we're seeing, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to the channel, because we love to hear what you got going on. And any topic that you want to bring up, we will hear about it and talk about it.
Yes.
Mary loves talking.
Yes, we will. Yes, we do.
She may take another sabbatical, think about it, but she'll come back and we'll have. Well, thank you. Mary,
all right.
Thank you.
Peace.
Later. See you guys.